most exciting thing that we're doing with the Social Networking Committee all year is getting attention for the annual conference. Now, this is the biggest ISD event of the year, I would say. But this year, it's especially exciting for me because it's online. And I live in the Netherlands. I can't always travel to a conference. So, by starting to do them regularly online as well as in person, that means that people from all over the world that might not have been able to travel can come and join in. And I'm going to say this year's conference is a really interesting one. I have some presentations to highlight. I have some tips on how to join, and yeah, I'm really excited for it.
I'm excited also. I mean, as somebody with like social anxiety, like the in-person conferences can be a lot and I love them, but online gives you that freedom to just be at home. You know, you don't have to worry about your social battery. You can kind of plan the presentations you want to watch, and Zoom events makes it really easy to watch recordings and chat with other people and things like that. So I'm really excited. So recently I read this book. It's really good. I highly recommend. And then I realized that Julia Mossbridge, the author, is one of the keynotes. So I'm really excited that we have some really awesome keynotes that have done some really cool work in the field. There's also going to be Charlie Morley, who is very well known in the field and has done some awesome work. He makes really cool content about lucid dreaming specifically. So I love the representation on lucid dreaming. Julia Mossbridge is talking about AI and how it affects our dreams, which sounds super interesting. Kaya and Christian Mueller, they're talking about decoding dream signs and understanding your symbolic dream language, super important. And then we have Serena Scarpelli giving a presentation on dreams as mirrors of well-being. So that sounds really interesting as well, how dreams and our waking life kind of intertwine.
Your favorite researchers are suddenly going to be there giving a presentation. Yeah, there's actually in the program some more of my favorite researchers that I want to highlight.
Yeah, I just love looking at the schedule at a glance. And even though it's, still going to be updated, I love reading all of the titles. Like it just gets me so exciting. Like grief dreams, ancestral dreaming, lucid dreaming and past life, dream mapping. Like all of this sounds really interesting. Just looking at the titles gets me excited.
Well, that brings me to a tip because it's a 5 day conference and there's so many presentations and I get overwhelmed. And on top of the presentations, there's also workshops. And then there's dream groups where you can discuss your own dreams every morning and several. So everybody gets a chance. But here's the thing with 5 days of presentation with different, like, they're about science, they're about the clinical aspect, they're about different traditions of dream work. It's too much. You can't do it all. So my first tip is please don't try and do it all because look, I printed it out, the whole schedule. This is just page one, okay? And then there's 5 pages of that. So what I did is I took a marker and I marked everything that I wanted to see to give myself an overview. And I think that's really helpful to sort of, from all these presentations, make your own personal conference of the things that you are interested in.
Yeah, that's true. Because you can always watch recordings later if you miss something. I always have that problem where like two really cool presentations are like at the same time or more than two. So yeah.
Yes, it's recorded. And yes, if you have a ticket to the conference, you get that recording so you can watch it later, but not everything because workshops are obviously very privacy sensitive and you want people to be able to speak freely and not have it recorded. So only the presentations are recorded. So this is my second pro tip. If you want to choose workshops because you cannot watch those back. Presentations, you can watch in the comfort of whenever they're going to be up for the rest of the year. But workshops, you're going to have to be there. And dream groups, you're going to have to be there. And for everyone who thinks, oh, you know what, I'll just buy the recordings. Yeah, you can do that. Definitely. It's really going to be awesome. They're going to be on sale later. But you're going to miss the workshops and you're going to miss the dream groups and you're going to miss the live interaction with all these other dreamers. That actually is kind of my favorite part of these conferences.
Yeah. And we're doing a presentation also on social media, right?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited about that because I hope that that would be more of a brainstorm of what can we do, what are people already doing to promote dreams, what can we learn from each other, what can we say that we have learned in the years of doing this, what works and what we could do more of. Especially because the both of you, I'm thinking, Melissa and Amina, you have such a wealth of experience as podcasters, and basically you've been on the forefront of fighting for dream knowledge and getting dreams out there. That's something that is very inspiring to a lot of people, but I think also a lot of people want to know how you do it, and what are your struggles, and what are your successes that we can all take away from.
I think that it's cool that it's an online conference and then we're talking about dreams and social media because it's all like online and through a screen. I think that the thing that's worked for me is kind of putting my ego or my personality to the side and not worrying what people think of me and not worrying about any judgment and just being very open about the truth and the rawness that dreams are, and still sharing it anyway, and still opening those conversations and letting people realize, the things that I dream about, or, what other people dream about, and sharing those because it normalizes dreams. Because I think some of the listeners think, oh, I have these crazy dreams, or, they're inappropriate, or they're scary and I would never behave like that in my waking life. But when you hear from others that, oh, like everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people's dreams are very different to what they'd really be like in their waking life, and it sort of normalizes a little bit, and know that dreams are very dramatic, and they're telling a story, and understanding that. And especially for the general population, not so much like dream workers get it, but the general population think, oh, I must be the only one going through this. So just having that voice so that those people can understand that they're not alone, I think is quite important. And that's what helps to push me to be able to share things and show up online. Because that was me once, and before I discovered Amina's podcast, and I used to think, why am I going through this? I'm the only person with these crazy dreams. And then I'd listen to her podcast and be like, I'm not alone. So I think that that's really important. That's what I feel helps to drive me to be able to do it.
I think that's such a good point. Especially because the whole idea of these conferences was exactly for what you're saying. That people thought, okay, but I can't be the only one who's interested in this, and I can't be the only one who's experiencing this. And it started with just a bunch of people getting together in the 80s and thinking, how can we share information and make feel a little bit more connected? And then it turned into these conferences where hundreds of people get together and realize that they're unique, but also connected to a much larger community.
Yeah, it's super important, I think, to give people that space. And I love that all the presenters, the workshop leaders, researchers, everyone kind of has that same mentality of, we take dreams seriously. We want to hear your dream. Tell me about it. Let's talk about it. So I love that everybody kind of shares this attitude on dreams. And so when new people come into, the community or check out the conference for the first time, like I love, hearing how safe they feel and how vulnerable they feel with just talking about their dreams and something they may have never done before. So yeah, I think it's super important and healing work for society in general.
Yeah, having that ear that wants to listen, because it is like, you go, oh, I had this crazy dream last night, and you just watch people glaze over because they don't know how to relate or take it on. Whereas when you get to an IASD conference or you meet some of the members, it's like they're looking with eyes wide open, like every single detail of your dream they want to take in. So it's really refreshing and just such a comforting feeling, having people that want to hear and want to help and are there to listen.
Yeah. That's my experience too. And I'm really happy with the fact that the conference committee, which by the way are all volunteers, they're amazing, that they've really committed to preserving that feeling and taking it online so that you can have chat rooms where you can just hang out and where you can still have that interaction that is not just okay, you see some recordings and that's it. But the core of this conference was exactly what you say, is that feeling of connection, that you can have with people who really get what you're saying.
Yeah, true. I'm excited for that. And I hope that it also motivates people to become a member and like keep following up with IASD. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. Like, there's a lot of cool benefits of just getting involved. You know, if you just love talking about dreams and you want to start making your own content about dreams or get into the, research field or whatever it is, just, being involved with IASD is like a great place to do that.
How did you guys become a member? Like, what made you become a member?
Good question. So for me, it was like during COVID, I was on Clubhouse a lot, just like talking to people, and I found groups on dreaming. And I think that's where I met Nicolina and then also other people that knew of IASD. So we started following each other like on Instagram and just, being on the online community. And then I would see posts of like the next conference or whatever workshop or whatever that they were doing. And I also met Robert Wagner through that Clubhouse group. So I was like, this is so cool. Like all these authors that I've been reading about, they're all just like chatting online. So I became a member. And then 2023 Ashland was my first conference. And ever since I was like, wow, this was so amazing. I have to go every year. So I did.
You get addicted after your first conference.
No, literally.
I became a member after when I was going through all of my studies, and I was, doing courses through colleges and studying and reading books. But it was like all this content that I just had to read or absorb, and I didn't have anyone to speak to about it. And I also wanted to make sure that the information that I was receiving and then sharing out to the world was correct. And I know that IASD is the most trusted source of information around dreams because there are a lot of myths and incorrect information that gets spread over the internet. So I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't spreading the wrong information. So I thought joining up and being able to have conversations with the experts and with members and people that were really well established in the field so that I was getting the correct knowledge to share was really important. And and of course I wanted to go to a conference. So I thought that was the best way to go about it.
Well, I actually didn't go to a conference until very late. I think I joined in 2010 when I was asked to write a book about dreams that came out in 2011. And like you say, I wanted to get really good information and check my assumptions with people who have been studying this their entire lives. And then I figured out there was an organization that does that. So I thought, well, that's convenient. And I became a member, and I've been a member ever since because it starts out for me. It started out with getting information right from the source, from the people who actually study it, and making connections there. But in the end, it became well. Then I started to volunteer because it was just fun, and then I started to make friends. And I mean, it's easy to make friends who share the same passion. And then at some point, someone said, would you like to chair the social networking committee? And I thought, yes, please, because then I can share this with the whole world, which is even better, you know? So it just starts with a tiny bit of, I'll just join because, I need good information. And in the end, it kind of became, yeah, we make it sound like a cult. I understand that. But the problem is that it's just really fun to connect if you have such a deep passion with people who understand that.
What are some benefits of being a member, Nicolina, that you've found throughout the years, aside from going to the conferences?
Yeah, well, first of all, that is a benefit because you get a huge discount as a member. So, I mean, it basically pays for itself. So why not? But at the same time, for myself, right? I found that there was for me a huge difference to approach these researchers that I look up to so much because they've made it. Like, I mean, if I think about our current president, Dr. Deirdre Barrett, who since the 90s researched dreams and creativity at Harvard, that is a person I wouldn't, I mean, I'd emailed her, but I would be very starstruck. And then all of a sudden, you're in the same association with them and you just get to hang out with them on conferences or wherever. And I mean, now that I'm a volunteer for a committee and she's the president, we get to talk to each other about things. And every time I email her, I'm thinking, I am emailing my absolute personal hero. And she responds like I'm a peer. It's, I don't know. For me, that feeling of I get to just talk to people that before I wouldn't feel like I would have access to. It sounds maybe a bit starstruck, but I'm a super nerd when it comes to dream research, and those people are literally, you know, no posters of movie stars, posters of them.
Yeah, that's how I felt with like Robert Wagner, after reading his books and thinking like, oh, he's just some like author that, is just famous and chilling. But really, he's just a nice guy and he's just like a normal guy. And I'm like, okay, it's funny because I felt like I was meeting celebrities too, but now they're like my friends and peers and like they're just all so cool. And we really just share a common passion about, dreams. And I love that.
That's the same thing for me. And also the volunteering. I know that sounds, like work, which it is, but there's 20 committees and everybody does like simple things and harder things. And it's not just the conference, it's also getting together online programs to study about dreams or getting together programs about diversity. And it's just like you get to be with a small group of people that says, okay, let's make this happen. And then you do. And it's just there's a fun part.
Yeah, the volunteering, it sounds like work, but when you're doing it, it doesn't feel like work. It's so exciting. And it's like if you have a passion about dreams and wanting to share dreams or learn about dreams or whatever it is, you get to fulfill that by doing it. So, yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah, for me, it came to life when I started to actively participate. That's that up. I mean, I love the fact. I love the fact that we get newsletters and are keeping updated with the latest research and keeping updated, with the journal and everything. I loved that, but for me, it was consuming. And when I started volunteering, it really came to life. It's like, oh right, I'm part of something. We're doing something together.
Yeah, especially if you have, goals of being a dream coach or a researcher or just getting in the field, even if it's just a hobby or a career, which it's both. This is a great way to do that for sure. Like you said, all the research comes here first, and it's just kind of like the hub for, you know, dream enthusiasts. And you mentioned the newsletter and the journal, which I definitely think is a big benefit for me. I love science and I love reading, publications that have come out. So I have like so many issues. Yep, you have them too, of the Dreaming Journal. So this is actually published by the APA, the American Psychological Association, which I think it's really cool that we have this. And so any studies about dreams comes out here. And so it's really interesting. I love the topics like the relationship between near death experiences and dreaming, the impact of the COVID pandemic and distress on dreams and social isolation. Like this is really important stuff, and you know, we get to have the physical copies and keep up to date before it even is presented at the conferences.
What are the presentations that you're looking forward to watching the most?
I have some. I mean, again, with my schedule, right? With the highlighter and the marker.
She's the organizer of
Oh,
the group. I love it.
yeah, but here's the thing. Otherwise, I lose my mind. So I have to. So there's one. Okay, there's four that I really think, wow. First of all, there's going to be a research symposium by Dr. Joshua Black and some of his colleagues about grief dreams, and they've especially Dr. Black. He's been studying dreams for his entire life, specifically on what happens. How do you process grief through dreams? How can it help? What does it mean when you dream of someone that you've lost, and how do you deal with that? And I've spoken to him a few times, and he has this really depth of experience, but also brings it together. So for me, it's like, yes, please. Then there's going to be a workshop. Again, that won't be recorded, so make sure you're there. About reclaiming the magical child. Intriguing title, by Dr. Linda Mastrangelo. And now I know her, so I know that everything she says to me, I'm just saying, blowing my mind. I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, that is so well said and so on point. But also, she's a therapist, so she comes with that depth of experience there. So if we're gonna talk about dreams and inner child, I'm gonna be there. And then there's a research symposium about nightmares, with some of my heroes who've been working either as a researcher or a therapist, and they're going to discuss what nightmares and health have to do with each other. Now, that is a topic I don't know enough about, so I'm definitely going to be there. And then one other thing that I'm excited about, I won't be there, but it's the fact that this year, for the first time, there's going to be every morning, not just dream groups. We have those every year, but this one, there's going to be one in Spanish every morning. I don't speak
I
Spanish.
saw. And German.
German as well. Yeah, that's true. So the fact that you could just, I mean, it would be amazing if we had them in every language, but we have at least now two more languages that can be covered. So that's just really cool because there's such a difference in talking about it in your own language when it comes to something as personal as your own dreams, right? So those are the things I'm most excited about.
I was actually going to say that about the morning dream groups because I noticed that. And I think that it fits so well for online conferences because we can have a wider reach, make it accessible for more people. So, you know, I love that we have a Spanish one. I will be going to that because I've actually been wanting to meet more Spanish speaking dream people. And there's a whole other audience to tap into there for my podcast. And I've met people through IASD who are from Latin America or Spanish speaking countries, and they're doing the same thing in their languages. So I think that's amazing that we are truly the International Association for Dreams.
Well, what ones are you looking forward to going to, Amina?
I'm really excited for Alaya's opening ceremony. She did her opening ceremony at in person at Ashland, and she's really good at setting the vibe, setting the energy. So, shout out to her. I'm excited for some of the workshops. The spiritual ones sound really cool to me. The ancestral dreaming, the keynotes, of course. I'm gonna go to all the keynotes. I'm really interested in this panel on healing trauma. I really love dream work for trauma therapy. There's a workshop on painting that Blackgrove and Lockhart do all the time, like at other conferences as well, and that's always amazing. I went to one in Ralduck, and they're such good artists. Somebody reads their dream. I think this is what they're doing this year, but what it was at Ralduck was they would have somebody read a dream, and then she would paint on like an old book. Like she would paint the dream in like this really beautiful creative way. So that was just such a cool thing to watch. I would definitely maybe go to that one.
Okay, I picked three that were my top. Number one, Dreamerfesting with Kelly Sullivan Walden. So I interviewed her on my podcast and I love what she does. So it's kind of like manifesting, but kind of totally different, and you use your dreams. So that's how I got into dream work, was from nightmares and then learning how to use dreams to enhance my waking life. And so, yeah, that really resonates with me. So I would love to go to that. And she's just such a great personality. She's extremely engaging because I think she's used to being on camera, and she's just really fluent and expressive. And so I know it would be really interesting. And then I was also interested in the collective consciousness with Harry DeBont. And I love, like, how we can have shared dreams, or, there can be a phase going on in the world, and a lot of people have similar vibed dreams, and there's this just connectedness between all of us. So I'd love to see what he presents about with that. And then there was a symposium called Dreaming Between Worlds, and that had a lot of people, and I think Bob Hoss is in that one too. And that just sounds very interesting. I'm very curious about that one. So yeah, and I don't know, they all look amazing. Like there's so many different topics, like the ones you guys are bringing up. I'm like, oh, healing trauma and nightmares and all of the things. Like I just want to go to all of them. But I think that's the good thing. There's the recordings, so you can go to some things live and then you can watch them later on. So yeah.
Yeah, I have this problem at every conference, so I'm not surprised.
I just think about what you said about the one with Bob Haas, Dreaming Between Worlds. I saw that, but now you make it stick in my mind because I remember you did such a wonderful interview with him last year for last year's conference, where he really spoke about meeting people in dreams, and having all these really amazing experiences. And this from this hardcore science guy, I love that he's the one who talks about these things, right? And he says it so well. And every time I've rewatched that interview that you did with him, I'm so glad
I cried like through the whole thing. And I've interviewed him twice, and every time I cry, and I'm like, I've already heard this story, and I'm still
You're
crying.
still. I've
It's
watched
so
it two
moving.
times. Every time I cry, and I'm sending it to everyone. So I'm so glad that it's still up on the ISD YouTube channel because it's
Mhm.
like, yes, yes.
Yeah, I love it. It's just really comforting. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of people have a fear around dying or, becoming impaired mentally and things like that. And just to show that there's still a connection with the other side through dreams, I'm very fascinated by that. And personally, I've had experiences having visitation dreams and receiving information that no one else would have known. And it's just, I don't know, it's just the coolest thing. It just makes me not scared of dying anymore. Like, I used to have such a fear until I discovered dream work. And now I'm like, oh, dying is just like going into a dream. Like, I'll be fine and I'll still be able to come and pop into my family and friends while they're sleeping and send them messages and stuff. Like, it's just really cool.
Yeah, for reference, for everyone who hasn't read it, very short. It's an hour-long interview, so moving. He talks about how his wife, who has dementia and she can't communicate when she's awake anymore, visits him in his dreams so they still communicate. And then he sees the real life effect of that the next day. And I mean chills every time I think about it.
I'm just getting goosebumps. Like,
That's awesome. Yeah, his story always like really gets to me. And it really just speaks to things that a lot of people go through. Especially with dreaming, it helps people with the fear of death and with grieving, which there's presentations on that. I think it's really important. I'm actually going to read this bit off the website that talks about the different approaches to dream work, the science, spirituality, art, which I always say I love how it bridges the three. And it's kind of funny, the wording on here. It says, think of the conference as a dream buffet. You can pick tracks based on your interests. It really does feel that way. But there's clinical approaches, culture and history, arts and creativity, ethnicity and dreams, health and dreams, practices for dream work, teaching dream studies, extraordinary side dreams, religion and philosophy and spirituality dreams, and then, of course, research and theory. So, like, literally a dream buffet, like all the things you could possibly want to know about dreams. We're going to talk about it. 100 events in 5 days. That's crazy.
you're making me hungry to go to sleep tonight.